Okay, welcome back. We're going to talk about chapter 6.1, and this is all about understanding and controlling oneself. So we need to ask ourselves something about interpretations. Are interpretations reality? Now, we should note that it is natural to think that interpretations are reality, and we believe that. Now, how an educator or teacher can help in this and to understand and controlling oneself is they can engage students and they can show the nature of interpretations and the power of interpretations. Now, students and teacher need to have a conversation within, and as we're doing this, the teacher, the educator, the facilitator needs to facilitate a conversation, a group conversation that doesn't challenge the student's beliefs. As we go forward, we need to understand misconceptions. Now, as we see here, our interpretations often lead to misperceptions. As you can see here, I'm using our fancy arrow from the last section we talked about. As you can see, that joins that our interpretations often lead to our misperceptions. So an example of this would be a student who's sitting in your classroom doesn't talk at all. Maybe she just got here from another school, but another student could say, oh my gosh, that student's stuck up. When in reality, that new student or that student who is not talkative is just shy. So what's the problem with misconceptions? Misconceptions are more times than not bad, and they often lead to bad outcomes. Now, misconceptions also lead to disaster among relationships, among people in the classroom, the dynamic of teacher-student relationship. However, there are many ways to help. Now, humor can help, class time conversation can help, analyzing common misconceptions within the school day, within a certain lesson, put time aside to analyze common misconceptions and understand how our interpretations lead to our misperceptions, and then we can really go from there. So let's continue on with cultural interpretation. So students' cultural identity often, and students don't know this all the time, but often it's how they view society and the world, as many of you probably know. How can teachers help with cultural interpretation? Teachers, facilitators, educators can help by showing students and conversations about understanding roles of different cultures, roles of different races. They can understand cultural misconceptions that have been said by other people. We can look at certain misconceptions, analyze them, and understand why they're a misconception, and then talk about why this probably isn't the case, and why does somebody label. So the best way to overcome cultural interpretation, negative cultural interpretation, is to analyze situations, analyze facts, analyze roles and certain misconceptions, and go from there. Now, there are ways to manage. Now, there are general strategies for managing, okay? The reason this would be good is so students can understand how to manage and control themselves. So, like it says, it's good to manage. Well, it's good to manage so you can understand what to do in a volatile or negative situation. You can stay cool. You can keep your calm. There are 4 things you can do. You can ask yourself 4 questions that can help manage when you're in a volatile or negative situation. The first is, what is my current situation? What's being talked about? What misconception is going on here? The second question is the likelihood that I can overcome this interpretation. Is it likely that because of who I am, I can overcome this interpretation? Now, the third question is very important, is do I even want a different outcome? You need to ask yourself that question and go from there. The last question is, how change my interpretation to get my new outcome? Assess that question, do it in your head, and figure out, okay, so the purpose of this is to show, the purpose of how to manage and control oneself is to show students that from a negative situation, a negative conflict, a negative interpretation, you can breed a positive interaction, a positive perception, a positive outcome can come. So, lastly, to understand, when students understand better, it shows the student, that they can seek new ways of thinking. And not just thinking, but they can seek new ways of positive thinking. And these potential 4 new positive ways of thinking is having a growth mindset, resiliency, positive self-efficacy, and having optimism. And lastly, as we close, that when students form and cultivate and understand new ways of thinking, it does help them control and maintain and understand themselves so that they can better make negative situations to positive situations.